Hello all and welcome back into the EscapePod for another EscapeBite. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity.
And in these mini-sodes, we take small bites into true crime. So recently I shared the story of how AI deepfakes were used to fake out a finance worker.
It was bananas.
At an international engineering company. And that company ended up being scammed out of millions of dollars. The people on the video conference call were not people at all, which really freaked us out.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That is
scary. Obviously, very convincing deepfakes, right? So I needed a little more optimistic story about artificial intelligence after that. So when it comes to crime, okay? So today I'm offering up a couple of examples of how AI can be of use in fighting crime, fully recognizing that this technology is not perfect. It can be quite controversial. And there are valid concerns about, for example, civil rights violations, biases popping up, that type of thing.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. But like many things, it can be a tool that does help. I mean, for sure. So one article said, for example, that in looking at cold cases, AI technology could analyze years worth of evidence, case notes, videos, etc., in several hours.
Yes.
So you can imagine how useful that would be. It's not necessarily going to solve a case, but it can kind of zero in on potential clues that then investigators can look at more closely, and it potentially saves a lot of time.
Like it can't hurt.
Right. Yeah.
It could help.
It might not be the thing, but it can maybe point in certain directions. Maybe you have heard of this. I had heard of it, but I didn't know a lot about it. Have you heard of Operation Renewed Hope?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Does it sound familiar? Yeah. So the first such international operation was conducted in the summer of 2023, but there have been two more operations since then. These are led by an agency with a really long name. The Child Exploitation Investigations Unit of the U.S. Homeland Security Investigations Cybercrime Center, or C3. We can just call it C3, maybe. C3. There's a quiz at the end. You're going to be asked about that name. Specifics about AI's role are not given. Because of obvious reasons. However, Homeland Security does acknowledge that facial recognition technology, which is a form of AI, is at work in these operations. So the first Operation Renewed Hope was conducted in the summer of 2023 over just a couple of weeks. And they say that resulted in the identification of 311 previously unknown victims of sexual exploitation in less than a month, using AI and ML, machine learning models, to enhance old images and give investigators new leads using facial recognition.
Okay.
So again, it's not solving a crime, but it's giving them something
to go off of.
Something to go off of. Homeland Security reported that several abuse victims were rescued and multiple suspects were arrested, including at least one international criminal. So again, there have been similar operations carried out in both 2024 and 25 looking to identify victims and in turn potentially finding the people responsible for victimizing them. Another example with fewer details that I could find is the use of machine learning, that's that ML, at the U.S. border. So in 2023, Homeland Security reported ML models had identified a suspicious pattern in a particular vehicle's border crossing history. The vehicle was driving north from Mexico and was at a point of entry. The models flagged the vehicle for review, and 75 kilos of narcotics were reportedly found in that vehicle. Again, that was back in 23. The driver, as you can guess, was arrested. So again, there is definitely some controversy surrounding law enforcement's use of AI technologies, but it's interesting. And while I'm not going to let it keep me up at night, but I do think it's good to consider both the pros and cons of any new thing, right? And I would I think it would be kind of fun sometime if your husband comes back to the EscapePod to see if he can share any times when some of those like newer technologies have been useful.
I even think Holly, because I bet
they use it.
Yeah.
They use it. It is used and some of it's not really new. in the grand scheme of technology, facial recognition has been used for a while, but I think in the speed at which it can be used now is partly due to like AI abilities.
I don't remember what I was listening to or who said it, but someone recently said either to me on something I was watching that AI right now is as stupid as it's going to ever be.
I sure hope so.
So that it just keeps evolving. It's going to keep evolving. And so, I mean, if it can help solve crimes, you think about like what's happening with genetic genealogy, solving long-term cold cases and things like that, like between AI and all of this, I think there's just going to be justice brought to so many families who've never had closure on what happened to their loved ones. They know something, horrific, and we're going to finally get it. So I just think it's cool.
Well, and just the speed at which,
But of course, criminals are going to keep up in their game. So, I mean, it's.
How did you know? Yeah,
well,
right.
Because
we're humans.
Criminals will criminal. That's just the way it is.
Right?
Yeah.
So, again, not a lot of details provided because they won't. They won't anytime soon anyway.
Good.
But
keep it secret. Solve cases. I think that's great.
It is super interesting, and I just had to have something that didn't freak me out the way the deepfakes freaked me out a week or two ago.
That was,
Right?
Yeah.
We're not feeling so icky after this one.
Good job, Julie.
Hey, I try. That's going to do it for us for now. We'll see you again another time.
All right. Bye, everybody.